Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friend Diagram. This is the podcast where two friends catch up and find common ground between their favorite media. I'm Remy.
I'm Kat, and today we'll be comparing notes on the films The Assessment and Cure. Warning, spoilers ahead.
Hi, Kat.
Hi, Remy. How are you today?
I'm doing okay. It's been a long time since we've chatted and potted.
I know.
It's been over a month at the very least. We're in late March right now. A lot has happened. Some good things, some bad things.
Yeah, well, always a little bit of a mix, but
of course.
It's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Let's see what happened in our absence. Honora had a great night at the Oscars. Well, specifically Sean Baker had a great night at the Oscars. That's awesome. Good for them. They did an excellent job, and I'm really happy Sean Baker's getting recognized. And that an independent film was recognized so heavily. So That's always heartening.
I still haven't gotten around to seeing Honora.
It's on Hulu now.
Oh, great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so it's way easier to see. Let's see, a sad thing. We lost Gene Hackman.
Yeah, we lost Gene Hackman.
Very sad.
Rest
Very
in
sad.
peace.
I know Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy, both passed away. Very sad stuff. Right after we were talking about Gene, I feel like we've been bringing him up fairly frequently recently.
Yeah.
What a cool guy. What a great actor. Yeah, so he'll definitely be missed. But hopefully, people were able to get out there and see a lot of his films, since people were thinking about him and having a lot of screenings for a lot of his famous work. And, maybe a lot more people got to see some of his great films.
Yeah, some of the early stuff.
What's your favorite Gene Hackman movie?
I really like The Royal Tenenbaums.
I thought you would say that.
Yeah. I love that movie. That's just like one of my favorite movies. So, yeah.
And he's so good in it.
He's so iconic. Yeah.
He's a standout in that film.
Yeah.
He's so good. Yeah. I'd say I can't think of anything that tops The Conversation. Yeah. What a film. What a performance.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that one.
It's wonderful. What else? I have some exciting personal news that I want to tell you about, Kat.
Tell me, please.
Remember how I moved to New Orleans a couple months ago?
Yes.
Well, I found out that every year there is a horror film festival held in New Orleans called the Overlook Film Festival. This year it's taking place in early April. And I acquired passes for Will and myself, and we'll be attending the Overlook Film Festival as our first ever film festival.
That sounds so amazing.
Isn't that so exciting? And it's horror related.
I know. I'm so jealous. I was looking at the film lineup, and they've got a screening of The Descent, which I absolutely loved when I watched it just a couple months ago for the first time. And I would kill to see that on a big screen. That would be amazing. I think it's celebrating some kind of anniversary.
It is, I believe. They have a lot of nice anniversary rep screenings mixed with obviously a bunch of new releases from a lot of upcoming directors and short films as well. So I'm so excited. I planned my ticket strategy early and got tickets to all the things I was really excited about, and I can't wait to go.
Yeah. And you texted me about the merch too.
The merch. Yeah, they're doing Super Yaki is making some of the merch for the festival, and I can't wait. I cannot wait to hunt down wherever that table is and get every single t-shirt. That's going to be sick as hell. I cannot wait for that merch.
It looks great.
I'm most excited to see Good Boy, which is a haunted house movie. Completely shot from the perspective of a dog. And I cannot freaking wait for that. I'm so excited. It had a great reception at South by Southwest that just took place. And it was already my top choice. And then I heard people at South by say the hype is real. And so I'm just double excited for Good Boy now. I can't wait. But there's a lot of other awesome stuff there, like the Shrouds I've been waiting to see, like, since last year. That's the new David Cronenberg. And a lot of other really cool stuff. So I cannot wait to give you a recap of the highlights after that's over.
Yes, please. Wonderful. I had a follow-up on our cryptid discussion. So if you've been tuning
our ongoing cryptid report.
We have discussed some New Orleans cryptids in the past, but I this week learned about a new cryptid, or it's not a new cryptid, but I had never heard of it before. And it is located in Pennsylvania. And it is called the squonk.
I have not heard of this.
It is a mythical four-legged creature said to live in the forests of Pennsylvania, and it's known for being so ugly that it cries constantly.
Oh my god!
I will share some images.
I can't wait to weaponize this as an insult.
But this is our lovely squonk. I really like this picture.
Squonk.
I don't know what it looks like. It kind of looks like Alf.
I guess so.
Have you ever seen the show Alf?
I'm familiar with Alf as the character.
As a concept.
It kind of reminds me of like just a wrinkly Okja.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. It's very cute. I love it. And now we need to take a trip to Pennsylvania and go squonk hunting.
Yeah. Does it say anything about regionality or?
It said the hemlock forests of northern Pennsylvania.
Northern. Okay. Well, the hemlock tree is the state evergreen tree, I believe, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Squonk. Interesting. Was the green there? Very thanks for that cryptid report, Kat.
You're so welcome.
I haven't seen any cryptids here yet, but I also haven't gone fishing with Uncle Leo yet. So
yeah, summertime's coming soon, though. So
when we go on our big fishing trip on Lake Pontchartrain, I'm gonna be scanning the water for anything suspicious looking. Well,
catch
fishing, obviously.
Catch it with your fishing pole. Or are you learning to fly fish? Did we talk about this?
No, I'm learning to clean fish. So first I will catch them the normal non-fly fishing way, and then Uncle Leo will teach me how to like gut and clean them for cooking because we always do like catch and release where I come from. So they actually eat the fish here. So
yeah. Do you like fish?
I do, yeah.
I didn't know that about you.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like fish. It's not my favorite.
Really? I didn't know that about you.
I'll do like a salmon or a swordfish. But aside from that, I'm not a big fish gal. I'll do fish and chips sometimes because it's mostly just fried stuff.
Definitely.
And you can't really taste the fish. And there's really good French fries that usually come with it. So, yeah, we love that.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind for any future dinner parties. But yeah, so I've been able to get out to the movies more recently, which is awesome. I've actually been doing double features at the local AMC. Feature. It's just more efficient. If I'm driving out there, I may as well go to 2 movies.
Yeah. Scott and I do that all the time.
Yeah, I just did that 2 weekends in a row, and I'm going to talk to you today about the movie that I was most impressed with. Probably my favorite movie I've seen in the theaters this year so far. It's a movie called The Assessment, and it's technically from 2024, but it's being released in the US right now in late March. So if you're hearing this in time, please go check it out in the theater. It's a wonderful film. The Assessment is the debut feature-length film for Fleur Fortuné, and it's written by Nell Garaf Cox, Dave Thomas, and John Donnelly, and it stars Elizabeth Olsen, Himesh Patel, and Alicia Vikander. So a lot of 3 very solid actors that I've enjoyed in a lot of other films. It debuted at TIFF last year, but like I said, it's currently in theaters right now. So if you can catch it on the big screen, definitely do that. And the assessment is an intimate near future drama that depicts the 7-day long assessment that the state requires for any couple that wishes to become parents in the new world. And in this film, we watch Alicia Vikander as Virginia. She is the assessor who is carrying out the assessment. And we watch her as she probes, provokes, and in some cases torments the prospective parents, Mia and Arian, who are played by Olsen and Patel, respectively. Kat, I think you watched the trailer for this film, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you probably got a sense of the tension that transpires between our three main characters in the film. And it's, for the most part, a three-hander, but there are other people that come in and out of the assessment as things unfold, and as Virginia wants to put pressure on the two prospective parents. So there's also a lot of side bits that work well as well, in addition to the 3 stars of the film. What I really liked about this film and what really stood out to me, well, when I saw it, first of all, I didn't know it was a debut feature. So when I read that after the fact, I was very impressed. I think this is a very confident debut film, especially because it demonstrated a great consistency of tone and mood throughout, and definitely confidence with its pacing. And when I say confidence with the pacing, that means that it didn't feel rushed. It felt like each scene had room to breathe, and each thought was ended before things ramped up to the next level. And I like it when a director is able to accomplish, a deliberate pacing and a thoughtful pacing without, the studio or someone making them over-explain things or make things move very quickly. This seemed like a film where hopefully the director got to just give their unadulterated version of what they wanted to make. At least that's the impression I got. So it was really nice to hear that this was a debut. And another thing that I thought was paced very well in this film, I mentioned it's in a near future version of Earth. The geography is uncertain because you're often confined just to Mia and Arian's house and like the surrounding area to their house. You don't see a lot of the world beyond their property, and you don't see a lot of the world beyond their relationship. Even when the assessor Virginia arrives, it's still just one small addition to the world that the film is unlaying for you. And I loved the way the director unfolded information without huge expository dumps of any kind. And I thought her pacing for information was really well done, because not only was it not heavy-handed, it was sprinkled throughout the film at the exact time that you needed to know things. So it wasn't all front-loaded, and a lot of it was simply not even included in dialogue. You could surmise a lot of things just by observing. For example, that Elizabeth Olsen is, all of the meals she is preparing, I think, are insect-based and or plant or algae-based, because she has a greenhouse where she does a lot of experimental botany. But, a lot of people say in the future, most food is going to be insects because it's a viable food source and easier to maintain than the food sources we have now. So that's just a small detail in the world that goes unremarked upon, but it shows that a lot of thought went into how this near future world was constructed and conceived of. But Fleur also gets in a lot of other contextual information about the future world. Anything from the structure of recent history and conflicts, conventions of the near future world, and the social dynamics of the near future world. You backfill a lot of these things based on the experiences of the characters in the film, rather than like a big historical dissertation. So you hear a person's individual experience about a time of upheaval. And through that story, you get a sense of what's been going on in the past couple of decades. And I think that's just a much more effective way to deliver that type of contextual information.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. And I also think it's worth explaining that in the film, you get a very detailed portrayal of just one select window of the future society. I mentioned that it's a very intimate film, and it's very firmly focused on Mia and Arian, the couple that are being assessed for a child. And even though you're confined to their house for the most part, you still get information on different jobs that are available in the future. And you see like the fashion that they're wearing, the style of their dwelling, the atmospheric conditions. You get information on the laws of the food and technological advances. And despite the advances in society and timeline that our characters are living in, you also, throughout the film, still get the sense that these characters are plagued by timeless insecurities like jealousy and tension with their own parents, and tension with an intrusion on their privacy. So it's not a near future film that's completely alienating because things are so different. There's a very human through line in the interpersonal dynamics of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a lot of that from the trailer. The trailer did a really good job kind of expressing that discomfort that you'll be feeling in the theater. I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I get what you mean. You can see in the trailer that Alicia Vikander, as the assessor, is doing some outlandish behaviors as part of the assessment and really pushing people's limits, pushing their boundaries to make sure that they can tolerate a child who has outbursts and is clingy and plays favorites or things of that nature. But while watching the film, I shouldn't say I never felt that way, but it's more digestible in the moment. It's not a film that you have to be afraid of being uncomfortable the whole time. But you certainly feel for Mia and Arian across the film. Like you're very, very much in their corners, and as things transpire, you understand the reasons why they do things. And yeah, it's hard not to give anything away. I don't want to say too much about who you're relating to over time, but yeah, Alicia Vikander as Virginia the Assessor is phenomenal. She is, I'd say, the standout performance of the film, even though everyone in the film is really good. But she has to do so many different things in her role, and she does them remarkably well. So she can have a very authoritative tone because she's a representative of the state, and the state is very restrictive on who's allowed to have children, and this assessment is very hard to pass, and there's just a lot of pressure on the couple who's being assessed very invasively. So she's great at being authoritative, but in turn, she can also, be very childlike in different, like micro assessments or mini tests where she's testing their patience or testing their approach to punishment or just seeing how they react to things. And so the range of her performance is incredible in this film. Let's see. So I mentioned that most of the film takes place on Mia and Arian's property. And while I don't think they ever say what geographical region they're meant to live in or how that maps onto our current world map, I do know that they filmed a lot of the outdoor scenes in this film in coastal Spain. And a lot of that scenery is very beautiful. There's a lot of beautiful scenes with like craggy rocks and crashing waves and beautiful sand beaches with these wonderful rock structures in there. I think they filmed it in Tenerife, but I found that that coastline was very beautiful and notable, and it added a lot of visual drama to those outdoor scenes. I just really liked that flourish. Sort of like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, how dramatic the seaside cliffs were in that film. It's the same like heightening of the drama with those wonderful vistas.
Yeah, I wonder if that's also like, I mean, I'm sure it's intentional, but I wonder if it's intentionally obscuring the geography even more, right? Because I don't know that we have in the United States like that kind of beautiful coastline.
Right.
So no one's going to like go in and watch the movie and be like, they're in my hometown,
Sure. I definitely think it's meant to be unknown. I think it's meant to be a question mark, especially because in this future society, there's the new world that Mia and Arian live in. That's what everyone calls it. And then there's the old world that basically they kind of refer to akin to like a penal colony, where if you're a dissident to the state, you're sent to the old world. And that's understood to be punishing. And it's understood that people in the old world are living without the technology that the people in the new world have. And there's a lot of dynamics at work that are murky, but you understand the role that both of those worlds play in the future society. And that's also something that I liked about the world building of this film, in that not everything is over-explained. Like there's still some mystery around the edges of these concepts, but I like filling them in based on people's mood and reaction to things. I don't need it to be over-explained. Like, I understand it's bad to go to the old world and that things are different there, and that I'll find out what I need to know about it.
Yeah. And from a storytelling perspective, I think that that's more interesting. It engages your audience by being like, because they're racking their brains trying to figure out what's going on and what's important information. So I kind of love when films or books are kind of like that, where you don't have enough information. It's great.
Yeah. And even though that's all going on in the background, it is very much like secondary or tertiary to the dynamics between Mia and Arian and Virginia, or even just in the marriage itself. That's always the primary focus, not just because that's what is being assessed in the titular assessment, but because the most tension is being exerted on Mia and Arian, and you have to see, you get to see whether that tension brings them closer or it kind of tears them apart. And so you'd never lose sight of the fact that you're watching what is unfolding in this relationship. Something else I really liked about this film is I thought it had notable cinematography by Magnus Young. And I liked the confidence they had with the lighting. I've been thinking a lot lately about the murkiness of lighting in a lot of contemporary films. and how I wish people would take more risks with lighting and more artistic flourishes with lighting, like traditionally has been done in film. And I think the assessment accomplished that well, in that it's not afraid to have contrast, not afraid to have scenes that are darker and harder to see, not afraid to have the light be an expression of an idea in a scene and have the light give you information rather than just bland full coverage lighting all the time. So I thought that was really notable, and I thought the cinematography and the lighting really nicely dovetailed with the production design, the art direction, and the costume design. So, for example, like the house that they're living in and their future clothes are all artfully cohesive, but informative at the same time. Like they give us little clues about what's going on in the future. And they also give us insight into what the characters might be thinking or feeling. So the production design from Jan Huvij, the art direction from Philippe Mayanobi, and the costume design from Sarah Blenkinsop, I thought were all very notable in their own right, but also in concert. Let's see. So I already said that Alicia Vikander was the standout performance for me. I thought she was phenomenal. But I also mentioned there are some smaller parts as well outside of the core three characters. And there's a dinner party scene that happens somewhere around the middle or the late third of the film where a bunch of people are invited over to have dinner suddenly. Like they aren't warned that there's going to be a dinner party at their home, which is a personal nightmare for me. And there's a lot of guests that they don't want to have in their home. But there was one character that shows up, and I was looking at that actress the whole time. I was like, I know this person from somewhere. Where do I recognize them from? And I couldn't figure it out. And so I looked on IMDb afterwards, and I realized it was Charlotte Ritchie from Taskmaster and Ghosts. And I was like, oh, it was Charlotte Ritchie, obviously. So a nice little cameo from Charlotte Ritchie is in there, which is a nice treat.
That's so fun.
Yeah. Let's see. And so there's a couple important things that made this film stand out to me as definitely my favorite film I've seen this year so far. So I think from the trailer, you obviously get the gist of how the assessment is going to go and like what Alicia Vikander is doing in order to carry out the assessment. And from that, this film could easily just be like insightful commentary on the demands and insecurities of parenting or childhood. But I was pleasantly surprised to find out that it offers much, much more richness outside of the realm of parenthood. So it explores themes like the ethics of resource scarcity and class, how those things, interplay. It explores themes like invasive state control, the gender imbalance in parental sacrifices, climate change adjacent technology. There's a lot of, like prospective future technology that was interesting and dovetailed with interesting laws that they discussed being implemented. And I think ultimately it has profound statements about the true nature of what brings people comfort and connection. And so I was really thrilled that there were many rich themes that the film explored outside of just parenting. I definitely felt like those themes came through very strongly in the conclusion of the film. I think the ending was extremely strong and the most emotionally impactful part of the film, definitely. I absolutely loved the ending sequence. I think it made a really powerful statement juxtaposing two different attitudes of what people can value in terms of comfort and connection. And if you fall on the same side of that dichotomy as me, I think you'll also find the ending very empowering and very powerful. So definitely the ending was a big standout and really drove home the idea that this film has a lot more going on than the premise that might appear on the page or in the trailer. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend checking out The Assessment whenever you get a chance. It's a really thoughtful film and really well done, and I would happily check out whatever Fleur Fortune does next.
Yeah. You talked about something new. I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit older. This movie came out in 1997, and I got recommended it this week by a friend and gave it a watch. It's Cure, which is directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. There's a lot of names in this upcoming segment that I will probably pronounce really awfully. So please bear with me. I'm just going to try to do it confidently and hope that it sounds good.
Yeah, apologies to everyone in my segment whose name I said wrong, which I'm sure was everyone.
So Cure follows a detective, I believe, in Tokyo, or that kind of metropolitan area. And his name is Takabe, and he's played by Koji Yakusho, who you may remember from our discussion of Perfect Days, which was episode 76. Many years later, he's still killing it.
I love Koji. He's amazing. He's so good.
He is amazing. His hair in this film, I will take a screen image from this movie and bring it to my hairdresser and be like, give me this, please.
Yeah. He looks
the
great.
hair was great. A perfect curtain bang. Anyways, so the film follows this detective who's investigating a series of murders. And these murders generally seem very disconnected. They seem random. Aside from the fact that all of these bodies are mutilated in a very specific way after death. And specifically, they have an X cut into the chest/throat area. And all of the murderers seem to have memory of committing their crime, but can't really explain why they've done it. It was just as though the thought was there suddenly and it felt very natural to do it. And one of the interesting parts of this film is that when you're witnessing these murders happening, they are not crimes of passion. The person is very calm while they're committing the murder. And it's a very eerie sensation to watch those murders be committed. So a lot of this is a horror movie, but a lot of the scares don't come from the murder, which is kind of turned on its head. I thought it was great. And throughout the film, Takabe is also balancing his career with caretaking for his wife, who has some sort of mental illness. I read online that it was trying to portray schizophrenia, but it could also be some kind of dementia as well. But she clearly has memory issues. She gets lost really frequently, and it is a stressor that's building on Takabe over time. I really loved this film, and there is so much that really stood out to me about it. The first thing I noticed was that the score was almost non-existent. There's kind of a initial sequence where you watch the first murder and it's playing this really odd upbeat music. But then after that, a lot of the sound design is simply kind of enhanced background noise for each of these scenes, which was really amazing. And I watched a short review by Chris Stuckman on this film, and I didn't have like words to express initially why I liked it so much, the sound design in this film. But Chris Stuckman mentioned that the sound design almost has a hypnotic quality in it. And this movie's very focused on hypnosis, and that kind of ends up being a thread that is followed throughout the film. And so there was like a hypnotic quality to the background noise, like a dripping of a faucet, or the waves on the beach being really important. So I loved that connection, and I hadn't put that together, but I just really I love when a horror movie doesn't need to use a score to enhance scares. It doesn't need to use suspenseful music. It's just using the storytelling to make you uncomfortable. And I thought that was perfectly done in this film.
And it's using the sound design to underscore a core theme as well. So not only is it not doing like cheap thrills, it's adding layers of meaning to those hypnotic themes. That's really, really good insight.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll link that review down in the show notes.
Yeah.
Because it was really good, and it was quite short, only like 8 minutes or so. But I think it gives a really great rundown of why he likes the film. I really loved the pacing in the film, especially in the way that information is revealed to the audience. I was kind of on the edge of my seat trying to figure out what was going on the whole time. And I love a movie that keeps me guessing. I thought that was really excellent. And also a lot of the scenes in it are like shockingly slow. And for a horror film, like the movements are slow. The scenes move slowly. There's a lot of space for the dialogue to linger. And I think we also get some of this in the way that it was filmed a lot of the time, where there are these long shots or still shots that are kind of following characters in an environment, or not following characters, but just kind of letting you watch characters and observe them in an environment. So the way that this is done a lot of the time is focusing the camera on a doorway, and then you're watching Takabe come home from work, and you're watching him put away his coat or whatever, I don't know. And then eventually you move into the home with him, but it lets you observe him in a really interesting way initially, and it obscures a lot of what's going on in the background, kind of requiring you to fill in the blanks, which I really loved. And also the long shot on the beach was really lovely as well, where you're watching the antagonist of the film be introduced for the first time and kind of wander across the beach back and forth, having a conversation with a man on the beach. And I don't know, I think that set up a really unsettling energy for me, to be zoomed out on the scene and just be like watching this man who you don't know what he's up to act very strangely, and just be able to see both characters in the scene with no cuts.
And that actor who plays the antagonist is so good at being enigmatic and unreadable and just kind of perplexing in a way that ends up being unnerving. And that guy is scary. Like not overtly, like he's not doing anything over the top or overtly scary a lot of the time, but he's still so unnerving.
So unsettling, especially in that first scene with him in that man's house. So essentially that man invites him inside and is taking care of him temporarily, because the antagonist of the film seems very confused and amnesiac. And I think that quality lulls people into a false sense of security.
Exactly.
And people kind of open up more to him because of that.
Mm-hmm. Or they let their guards down at the very
They let
least.
their guards down. Yes. That's a really good point. I found that first sequence of him in that man's house prior to the second murder of the film just so unsettling. And it's another one of those really slow scenes where you're just kind of like having a conversation and walking around. But I think that was the most uncomfortable I felt in the whole film.
Interesting.
Because I just had a sense that this person was not to be trusted. And I was right. So it was such a good scene, but that's one that keeps like replaying in my head a lot. Thematically, I think that there's a lot to chew on and digest in this film, and I don't think I have fully done that yet. I'd love to give it another watch. I really want to watch this with Scott. I think he'll love it.
I think so too.
And I think that the first kind of hints at what the themes of this movie are revealed by a psychiatrist character named Sakuma. And Sakuma and Takabe are having a conversation very close to the beginning of the film where Takabe is like tracking all of these murders that are happening and trying to find the link between them and saying, there's something going on here and I've got to understand it. And Sakuma says something along the lines of, people like to think that crime has meaning when most don't. And that line really stood out to me. I thought it was a really great line and kind of hinted at where the film was going, in my opinion. I think that this film is cynical and it speaks to our worst parts of our nature and explores that and how we confront the worst parts of ourselves. So it's playing with this concept of our inherent evil as people. And when the antagonist is around, sometimes he's able to lull people into that false sense of security. But then other times with other individuals, we see this with Takabe, but we also see this with Takabe's boss, like a police chief. He knows where to press to push these people's buttons and to bring out a rage in some people and an anger and a frustration. And so I don't really know what it means that he has this like opposing effect on people. But I think when people are seeing through the fact that this man is like involved in these cases and they're able to kind of get past the point of their guard, like they don't let their guard down, he brings out this like really unexpected side to people. Takabe kind of throughout the film gets more frustrated and has these outbursts more frequently. And it's being kind of driven by this person. And it also talks about meeting your true self. So at the very end, there's like this place that people are going throughout the film. Takabe and Sakuma both end up there. And the antagonist says something like, people come here to meet their true selves. And what happens after that? And so Takabe and Sakuma have two very different reactions to being confronted with their true selves. And I think that there's a lot to chew on there as well. And I don't know that I fully have digested it, but I think it comes down to whether or not you can handle what you're faced with when you do have your true self exposed, because we are repressing that and fighting against that. But do you embrace your true self, or do you continue to try fighting that or become despairing when your true self has been exposed to you? So anyways, I think that there's a lot to think about there. I loved the film. I also just thought it was extremely beautiful. I love the way that they shot the dilapidated house, or I don't know what it is, but there's like a very eerie house. It kind of reminds me of some of the scenes in Longlegs where it's like a snowy lawn and then a big structure. And it's very ominous.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I watched Cure for the first time last year, and I specifically sought it out because a lot of people were discussing it when Longlegs came out.
Oh, really?
And a lot of people were saying if you felt, dissatisfied or disappointed by Longlegs, you should check out Cure because it executes a lot of the same ideas, but much better. And I checked it out for that reason. And I was like, yeah, I agree with this. It actually, it has a more interesting and cohesive delivery of those points, like specifically the point you brought up earlier about most crimes have no meaning and things of that nature. So yeah, that was the context within which I checked it out, and I absolutely loved it as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that specific shot was very reminiscent of Longlegs to me, or vice versa. Obviously, this film came first, but it reminded me a lot of that. But yeah, just really beautiful cinematography. I don't know who the cinematographer was. Let me look.
Yeah, I think both of those films, though, at least Cure for sure, and Longlegs in some ways do a really good job of like de-romanticizing the detective and serial killer narrative. And I think that's definitely something you were touching on earlier in kind of the dispassionate way a lot of the crimes are portrayed. Like nothing is sensationalized and definitely nothing is romanticized. So the way in which these crimes and these people are portrayed is definitely consistent with the attitude of a lack of meaning, or at least a lack of a romanticizable narrative tied to these crimes.
I love that point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but I really like that point. The cinematography was done by Takusho Kikamura, but I thought it was stunning. It looks like a modern film.
It does, doesn't
when you
it?
watch it, I don't know if that's just the Criterion like remaster or what, but it feels very modern. It looks very modern.
Very much so.
It was gorgeous. Yeah, I just loved it. After watching this film, I'm very excited to watch it again with Scott, but I also am really eager to check out more work by this director. And specifically, I'm hoping to check out Sweet Home, which came out in 1989. And I read that it was the inspiration for the first Resident Evil game.
Oh.
Which I found very interesting. A classic.
That's interesting.
I'm interested to check out Pulse, and I'm interested to check out Seance. So those are my next 3 watches that I'm hoping to check out from this director.
Cool.
And he has a new movie releasing this year. Well, it technically released last year, but you get to see it. I'm so jealous.
I know, it's going to be at Overlook, Cloud.
Yeah, Cloud.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. That was also at the top of my reservation list. I was really, really hoping that Kiyoshi Kurosawa would be added to the schedule. I thought they were going to put in Chime, actually, which is another shorter length, like not feature length, horror film that he also released last year that I've heard incredible things about. Like, I am dying to see Chime, but it is not anywhere available in the US. So I was really hoping Chime would be added to the schedule, but I'm also very excited to see Cloud, which is, I think, longer. It might actually be like a true feature length. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited for both. And I did just watch Pulse because that one is much more examining the relationship between like social isolation and technology and how technology shapes people's behavior. And I think those are all themes that will also be present in Cloud. So I was like, well, I gotta watch Pulse before I see Cloud.
Yeah. You'll have to let me know how it is. I'm excited about it. And if you are interested in exploring Cure a little bit more, there is an interesting interview. I have not heard all of it yet, but I will link it in the show notes between Ryusuke Hamaguchi, who directed Evil Does Not Exist, which we talked about some episodes ago, and Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who directed this film. And I think it's a really interesting interview. Ryusuke Hamaguchi was in part trained by Kiyoshi. And so it's kind of a case of the student interviewing the teacher. And so I think that it's interesting it was done recently. It was a 2020 interview, I believe. So it's interesting to have the director reflecting on kind of his breakout film, right? When you're reading about his career, he was directing a lot of these like commercial films at the time because that was kind of what was wanted. And this was like his first big movie pitch that he got to do what he wanted, exactly what he wanted. And I think that having him reflect on that is really interesting to listen to.
Neat.
Yeah.
Wow. What a fucking film. I think the scene that stands out the most in my mind is the public bathroom scene.
Oh, I hate that scene.
That one stuck with me the most, I think. You mentioned like the first time we meet the antagonist, but when I think about Kira, I think about that bathroom.
Yeah, lots of bathrooms in this film too. Like a lot of, like in the antagonist's apartment, there's a significant bathroom scene. And also in the like jail cell that he's being held in, he's oftentimes like confronting the detective character from the bathroom area. But yeah, there's a lot that I still don't fully understand, but I loved it. And I love that I'm still thinking about it. It's not one of those movies that you can just kind of like put away after watching it in a really good way.
I want to watch that again tonight now.
Oh, yes. You should. And let me know if you have thoughts on the Bluebeard stuff at the very beginning. I'm curious about that, and I don't have any explanation for it.
Okay, yeah. I remember the first time I watched it, I was like, is this going to make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't remember ever circling back on that thought, so I'll watch it again and see what I think.
Yeah, because I'm confused about certain aspects of the wife's treatment at that hospital. And so I'm curious if you can explain it to me more. But yeah, it was an excellent film. I absolutely loved it. And I highly recommend it to anyone. I just rented it, so it's not super expensive, but it's definitely out there on anywhere you can rent movies.
Yeah, great pick, Kat.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to those that recommended it to me. It was excellent.
You ready for our friend diagram?
I am. Let's make those circles.
All right, what did these two films have in common?
The first thing on my list is that both of these films have a seemingly antagonistic character that is really good at provoking responses from the main characters in one way or another, and in a very nefarious fashion.
Absolutely. Yeah, very much so. That's true of the assessment. Yeah, that's a great one, Kat.
Oh, thank you. Strong start.
first thing I wrote down was a mastery of mood and tone. They have separate mood and tones, but I definitely praise the assessment for its consistency of its tone and mood throughout. And I know that can often be something that is hard to achieve and stands out a lot when you don't achieve it. So I always like to praise that when I can see that someone actually nailed it. And I mean, Cure is a masterclass in mood and tone. So, I mean, what better example could you go off of?
Yeah. I also think that on a similar note, both of these films we thought had very good pacing, especially for the way that information is revealed, where it's like sprinkled throughout and you're getting it very piecemeal. I loved that aspect of Cure, and I think I will really enjoy that in the assessment as well.
Mm-hmm. There's also a strained marriage at the center of the protagonist's point of view, certainly. So
totally,
that is another thing that these two films have in common.
Yeah. The last thing I have written down is that they're both trying to get at the core of the protagonist's nature. So in the assessment, she's trying to test them to understand who they are as people and whether or not they'll be adequate parents, is my understanding.
Yep.
And in Cure, there's this concept of being confronted with your inner nature and parts of yourself that you probably don't love.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an overlap as well.
Yeah, that's similar to my final point as well, which probably wasn't obvious from my description because I wanted to kind of keep the conclusion of the assessment a bit obscure, but I don't think it's giving too much away to say that both conclusions center on confronting your true self.
Okay. Interesting.
In
I'm excited
very
to watch
different
this.
ways, but I think you could absolutely make the argument that those are like very two different approaches to confronting your true self and what your true self means in these two different worlds.
Good cinema. We love
Good
it.
movies, man.
Good
movies, popcorn movies. Thanks for joining us this week on Friend Diagram. Thank you to Tyler Seek for the creation of our intro and outro music. Did you take any of our recommendations? Have any thoughts on the show? Let us know at frienddiagrampod@gmail.com, and we might read your email on a future episode. If you can, please take a moment to rate and review the show on your podcast app of choice, and we'll see you back here, same place next week. Bye for now.